In the taxi's rear, Emily proposed separate rooms. Gazing out at the illuminated hotel, she seemed to converse with the window. "Not for me," the driver commented, eyeing us in the mirror. A premonition stirred within me, then my mind. This wasn't work-related, it was a boundary being set while still en route. She readjusted her corporate badge and cautioned, "Maintain composure. There will be colleagues present. I wish to avoid gossip. Let's remain formal on this journey." The word professional hung between us, lingering. The taxi pulled up to the entrance. Valet doors swung open. Echoes of laughter emanated from the lobby bar. I observed Emily's reflection in the glass, poised posture, phone already in her grasp, swiftly scrolling. I didn't inquire about her recipient. I was aware it wasn't me. 6 months ago, she needed my touch on her wrist to sleep peacefully. She couldn't hold my gaze long enough to complete a sentence. At the reception, she acted decisively. 2 rooms, she stated matter-of-factly, on separate floors. I signed where the clerk indicated. My hand didn't tremble. That took me aback. She collected her key card without brushing mine. "This is beneficial," she remarked, sounding more like comforting a client than her spouse. "Less stressful, we'll merely concentrate on work." I nodded. "All right," I replied. "Then I'll be in the room next door." The elevator chimed. She entered without pausing for me. The door closed between us, silently and neatly, as if that was how things should conclude. I remained standing with my key, already aware I wouldn't sleep in that room. My room reeked of fresh cleaner and a faint citrus aroma, typically used in hotels to make everything seem fleeting. I deposited my bag by the door and didn't switch on the lights. Through the window, the city continued its motion, as if nothing had transpired. On the bed's edge, I allowed quietness to take its course. Once, Emily would drift off while clutching my hand, tightening her grip if I tried to withdraw too hastily, even without opening her eyes. That was genuine, that was a dream. For 6 months now, I've been striving to restore her to that state, as if it were an unending project with no deadline. Flowers sent to her office, met with polite thanks like a colleague. Movie nights filled with work texts and the screen illuminating her face, while I watched the flickering light instead of the film. Weekends she'd claim exhaustion, yet still found energy for lengthy balcony calls. Unpacking deliberately, I arranged my shirts in the dresser as routine offered some semblance of cohesion. My phone pinged once, not from her. A team group chat about tomorrow's conference schedule with her name listed, active, typing, then vanishing. Initially, I contemplated visiting the hotel bar, but changed my mind. I convinced myself to give her some space. That's what supportive partners do, I reasoned. However, after a brief pause, I retrieved my coat regardless, not with the intention of arguing or accusing, but to propose a walk, as we often did in new cities. I ventured into the corridor and pressed the elevator button, rehearsing a composed statement that I wasn't certain she would listen to. Her floor carried an unfamiliar scent, cleanliness replaced by a waft of perfume from partially closed doors. I trailed the numbers on the wall until I reached her room, slowing down abruptly, conscious of how loud my footsteps echoed on the carpet. I rationalized this as normal. Colleagues sharing the same hotel, late meetings, drinks transforming into planning sessions. All the explanations I'd been using for months stood ready in my mind, poised to be used. I lifted my hand to knock, but the door swung open before my fingers could touch it. A man emerged, straightening his jacket. Instantly identified him, Mark, my vice president, a man with whom I've shared drinks and handshakes during company dinners, calling me Buddy affectionately. He didn't notice me at first. He whispered to someone near the open door, 10 minutes, I'll get your favorite. My breathing paused. From within the room, Emily's voice echoed, "Okay, just let me switch my shoes." Not brusque or hurried, but soft and lively, a tone that hadn't been directed at me in a while. Mark smiled to himself, closing the door behind him, his gaze finally falling on mine. The smile vanished slightly, not out of guilt, but recognition. "Hey, James," he said casually, as if by chance, with no hint of the ongoing situation. I nodded once and retreated into the wall's shadow, allowing him to pass. He didn't ask why I was there. After his footsteps faded down the hall, I remained rooted there, staring at Emily's door, aware of 2 options, knock or follow him. I didn't knock. Instead, I leaned against the wall for support. From behind the door, I detected movement, neither rushed nor furtive, but calm and untroubled. Emily's door creaked open slightly, revealing only a sliver of light across the carpet. "I'll be down shortly," she called out, her voice inviting, teasing. "Feel free to go ahead." That was the tone she used for me, the one that made everything seem effortless. Emily closed the door. A brief interval passed before I heard her heels clicking towards the elevator. Hidden by the corner, I retreated further. She walked past without glancing my way, engrossed in her phone screen. No work materials, no badge, just professionalism. The elevator door shut, and the floor number blinked. I stayed put until it reached the lobby before I emerged. My reflection in the opposite doors showed an aged face compared to this morning's. I could return to my room, feign ignorance, let the next day unfold as though nothing were amiss. Or I could cease speculating. Descending the stairs swiftly, my heart constricted yet mind lucid for the first time today. By the time I swung open the hotel bar door, I had decided where to sit. The bar was half filled already. Dim lighting, soft music, each element intended to prompt closer interaction than necessary. I selected the most shadowy corner, my back against the wall, so the mirror behind the liquor shelves wouldn't reflect my face unless I leaned forward. I opted for a whiskey I had no intention of finishing. This wasn't about discovering them. I wasn't here for evidence. If I sought that, I would have knocked on her door. Instead, it was about something more substantial. I needed to observe who she transformed into when she believed I wasn't in the room. I required knowing whether I remained a part of her world or merely an issue she had learned to handle. Sitting motionless, I watched the entrance. Individuals arrived chuckling, shedding the weight of the day, searching for acquainted visages. I glanced at my phone momentarily, then flipped it over. No messages from her. None inquiring about my location. None confirming contact. Moments elapsed. An unusual tranquility enveloped me as if I had surpassed a boundary and pretense was futile. Then they entered, not individually but together. Mark murmured something into her ear as they crossed the threshold, prompting Emily to laugh freely without reserve. She didn't scan the room. She wasn't tense. She seemed weightless, like someone who had placed something down with no intention of retrieving it. They meandered towards the bar. She absent-mindedly straightened his collar, a habitual gesture she used to perform for me before engagements. I remained stationary. I didn't divert my gaze. For in that instant, observing her smile at him, I felt the final bond between us tighten. And I understood whatever followed, there was no turning back. They were oblivious to my presence. What stung the most wasn't her laughter or her moving closer, but rather how unseen I was in that room. If not for their conversation, I could have been a passerby or a ghost. They ordered drinks and he signaled to the bartender as if the place belonged to him. She leaned comfortably on the bar, her relaxed posture one I hadn't felt beneath my palm for months. I watched her sip her drink and genuinely smile. It wasn't for show, it wasn't cautious, it was real. At some point, he said something that made her touch his arm. The gesture wasn't dramatic or hurried, but natural, effortless. It was the kind of touch that presumed consent. A stillness swept through my chest. I anticipated anger, a racing heart, a desire to interrupt and end it immediately. Yet nothing of the sort emerged. Instead, a void took its place, an unexpected emptiness. They stayed longer than expected, conversing and laughing. She peeked at her phone once, glanced at the screen, then tucked it away in her bag without typing anything. It was then that I realized this wasn't an oversight. It wasn't a terrible night. It was a decision she had already made prior to the taxi ride, before reaching the hotel desk, even before uttering the word professional. I rose from my seat before they did, leaving my glass half full, and exited the bar without casting another glance back. Back in my room, I remained seated in the dark, fully clothed, absorbing the silence. For the first time, I ceased wondering what I could do to save our relationship. I left the lights off. I sat on the bed's edge, allowing the room to remain as it was, transient, impersonal, already fading from her memory. The agony wasn't from what she hadn't said or done. It was from how effortlessly she had removed me from her evening, from her decisions, from our conversation. As if I were an inconvenience, she had finally learned to manage effectively. For months, I had been apologizing for things that were never specified, for being too much. For inquiring about her destination, for desiring conversation during late hours, I had been minimizing myself, hoping that by occupying less space she would return. In that bar, I realized something without needing to articulate it. All my efforts hadn't faltered, they were redundant. There was nothing left to preserve. I glanced at my phone, still no message from her. No good night, no where are you? The silence wasn't coincidental, it was deliberate. I reclined on the bed and gazed at the ceiling, listening to footsteps echo in the hallway, doors creaking open and shut, lives advancing. After midnight, I heard laughter outside. Hers, drawing nearer on this floor. A key card beeped. A door opened. Then another one shut. I didn't need a clock to know the night had ended. By dawn, I wouldn't be the same individual she abandoned in that taxi. Dawn arrived unbidden. I was ready when I heard her door down the hall open. Once more, the gentle clack of heels echoed, unwavering and assured, as if no significant event had transpired during the night. In sync, we both emerged. The synchronization was so precise it seemed prearranged. We crossed paths at the elevator. Emily, ever as she was before professional encounters, poised, vigilant, immaculate. She flashed a polite smile when she noticed me. the type of greeting one extends to a daily colleague. "Hey," she began. "How did you fare last night?" There it was, the start. The juncture where I could retort sharply, honestly, or loudly. Instead, I regarded her as if viewing her with fresh eyes for the first time, not as my spouse, not as the person I had been striving to contact for months, just as the woman standing before me now. "I'm well," I replied. "You were correct." Her eyebrows arched slightly. "Regarding what?" "Regarding maintaining a professional distance," I said, maintaining a composure that caught me off guard. "The legal documents have already been initiated. My lawyer will forward them to you on Monday." The elevator chimed behind us. The doors unveiled. Since the taxi ride, her grip on control weakened. "For a brief instant, what are you referring to?" she inquired. "James, it's due to these rooms," he replied, remaining silent. He delved into his jacket pocket and extracted her phone. Color drained from her face upon seeing the device in his hand. The display remained active. She didn't immediately seize the phone. Her gaze shifted between the screen and his face, as if discerning which reality she was experiencing. The elevator door remained ajar behind us, quietly humming. "I believe you picked up the wrong one," she blurted out. He turned the phone towards her for clear viewing. No manipulation, no theatrics, merely the screen, unaltered from when he retrieved it from the table after they departed. A solitary message sat at the top. That evening had been the best of the entire trip. She gasped and looked down the corridor as though someone was surveilling us. When she looked back at him, her poise vanished. Neither rage nor sadness showed. "Conversation. Did you check my phone?" she queried. I denied with a shake of my head. "I thought I left it here." There was an elongated silence between us, not oppressive but definitive. She seemed about to clarify, to alter the narrative into something less confrontational, more rational. Yet before she could begin, I stepped into the elevator and let the doors slide shut, terminating our dialogue. As the elevator descended, I felt unburdened, not relaxed, but resolute. Upon leaving the elevator in the lobby, I opted not to glance back, already aware that our discussion had concluded. What remained unknown was how vacant the conclusion would seem once I stepped outdoors. I exited the hotel without delaying for a car. The morning breeze was brisk, one that clears your mind regardless of your intent. Behind me, the automatic door slid closed, partitioning off the lobby, the bar, the elevator, everything. I didn't decelerate my pace. My phone vibrated once in my pocket. I opted against retrieving it. At the street corner, I paused and scanned the roadway. The crowd was bustling off to work, clutching coffees, readjusting coats, embarking upon their daily routines as if the previous night had been an ordinary one. For a fleeting moment, I lingered longer than necessary before resuming my walk. There was no inner monologue, no recap of words unsaid, no daydream of her pursuing me, calling out to me. Only stillness. For months, I'd been striving to demonstrate that I wasn't an issue or excessive. At that moment, walking away from her, I grasped a truth without needing to articulate it. I hadn't lost her that night. I had departed already. I stepped onto the street when the light allowed, feeling the burden lift not in one fell swoop, but enough to breathe. Behind me, my journey would persist: conferences, bars, professional engagements. I didn't look back to confirm. Instead, I pressed on, opting for silence, choosing myself, and allowing that world to remain where it was confined behind closed doors, now out of reach. Thank you for watching until the end. Share your opinions here. I read each comment carefully. Don't forget to subscribe for future content.